What is up, Buff Nation, and welcome on into a basketball installment of the Sko Show right here on Mile High Sports, powered by our friends over at Peckish. Aniello, Piro, Chase Howell, talking all things Colorado Buffaloes. And yes, football is still the talk of the town, but we've got a plenty of discussion to have around the basketball teams, men's and ladies, and we're going to have a good time on the program today. And Chase, you've lined us up a very special guest.
Oliver Hayes. He's been writing for BuffStampede.com, a junior at the University of Colorado, but one of Adam's guys, and we love bringing on Adam's guys to talk some Buffs. Oliver's watched much more basketball than we have this year. I know he's been to a lot of practices as well, so we might as well bring an expert because we haven't been able to pay too much attention to this basketball team yet.
Yeah, and rightfully so. So let's bring on Oliver into the program. You guys can follow him on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at OCU Hayes, at OCU Hayes on the social media sphere. And Oliver, my friend, first things first, before we talk hoops, rumor has it that Jake Shapiro is one of your professors at CU Boulder. Can you confirm or deny?
Well, yeah, I can confirm that he is one of my professors. He teaches his own class, but he actually took over one of my sports writing classes.
Shap's a good guy, man. Him and I go way back when he was actually in your shoes. I remember I met him when he was in college and I was a senior in high school, and we both started covering the Denver Nuggets together, ended up doing a bunch of coverage for the Rockies together. So Shap's my guy, man. So happy. Once Chase told me that was kind of something that you were dealing with or working with at CU, I thought that was pretty cool. That
the only reason AP and I know each other is probably because
that is true. One day I go up to Shap's apartment in Boulder, and there's Chase on his laptop like he is here at the Mile High Sports Studios, just plucking away. So small world how that works. But Oliver, before we get started here, the Buffs obviously 4-0. Give me a little bit about your background. How did you get involved covering the Buffaloes, and what do you just make of? You could talk a little football as well, but what has your experience been like so far?
Yeah, so I grew up in Colorado, in Monument, just north of Colorado Springs, and then my dad, he played Division I baseball. So baseball was the big sport, but he just loves all sports, and that was kind of enshrined in me from when I was a little kid. And he grew up just outside of Boston, so being born in October in 2003, it was a special time for the Red Sox. Obviously, not in 2003, they had just lost on the walk-off home run. But 2004, my first birthday was special. And so that kind of jump started my love for sports. And, to my father's dismay, I didn't like baseball as much as I like basketball. I don't know. There's so much to love about every sport, but I don't know. I just love basketball's environment so much more. And, I played that competitively. Same thing with baseball. Played throughout high school. I played at Palmer Ridge. If, any of you guys know of Palmer Ridge, I know they're a football school, not a basketball school. So, please don't look up my stats or record or anything like that. But, after that, I had an older brother who came here, and, Colorado, I wanted to stay in state to be close to my family, and figured this would be the best place. I didn't really like CSU, and I didn't know a whole lot about lacrosse or hockey. So I figured Denver would be the right place. So that's kind of how I ended up here. And, since then it's been a wild ride. I met Jake, not even in a crazy way. I just showed up to, Sko sports meeting, and that was that. And, since then it was, I was lucky I showed up when the bus run 11 on the football field, because, that was about as many people we had, 1 to 11 people in the club, as I like to say. So from now, we have over 50 members in the club, and everything's very cutthroat in Sko sports, where I met Jake and got started. And then from there, I've worked for the Buffs Wire at USA Today, and Adam just brought me on for Buff Stampede, and so that's kind of my journey, and as few words as I think I've ever been able to put it in.
So let's talk a little bit about Buff Stampede. What was it like when Adam probably reached out to you? Did you guys have a meeting at the sink? I remember when he first brought me on, I was going into, I think, my junior year at CU as well. Another Buff Stampede disciple. But what was it like having those discussions with Adam and getting to join his great website?
Well, it was cool. He took me to the Buff for breakfast. We went before practice, so really early in the morning. It was a great breakfast. But it was cool, hearing his journey and hearing how he kind of figured out things when he was in high school, trying to just being an enjoyer of sports and trying to find different ways to go through that love, I guess. So it was cool learning about him, and of course, him being a Celtics fan as well. I'm a Celtics fan, so we talked about that a little bit. But actually, Jimmy Searfoss, I know you guys know him. He's the one who got me this position. And so really, this whole journey, I've been super thankful to Adam, and Adam's given me a ton of support on Twitter and whatnot. or X or whatever you call it. But it's really been Jimmy who he recommended me to Adam. He introduced me to Adam. He he got me on some a few like feature things for Buff Stampede before I officially got hired. And so Jimmy really made the segue for me to meet Adam. And then since then, Adam's been great, just telling me little tips and tricks. And really the big thing is just catching me up on the history because, before my brother came here, I didn't really have a care for Colorado sports. Neither of my parents went here. And so I didn't know too much. And so I've had a lot of catching up to do. And it's been a fun, wild ride, especially since Dion has come here.
Well, you're all part of the ecosystem, right? You mentioned Adam Munster Tiger, Jake Shapiro, Chase is all right, I guess. Jimmy Searfrost, he's a good up-and-comer as well. But it sounds like you're on the right track, my friend. I'm looking forward to having you on the program here. Talk a little Buffs basketball, maybe some football along the way as well. But let's dive into the Buffs hoops, man. They're 4-0. 4 pretty good wins: East Washington, Northern Colorado, Fullerton, and Harvard. But more of a big picture question for you as we kind of get started, and we'll talk about the Maui Invitational as well. What is the expectation from what you've been able to gather with Tad Boyle's squad this year, maybe compared to last year? No returning starters, right? No Tristan Da Silva, he's in the league. KJ Simpson's in the league. Cody Williams is in the league. What's kind of the vibe around CU hoops this year, and what do you think the expectation that they set for themselves is?
I know this answer kind of sucks, but it's really anything. And you mentioned it; they didn't return any starters. They also lost Luke O'Brien, so they're 6-man. And Julian Hammond, who was their 7th guy last year, he was missed the last 11 games of the season due to injury. And so with Julian Hammond being the most tenured Buff, and he's only started 15 games before this year. That made it hard for the returners. Then from the transfers, which Tad Boyle had to go into the transfer portal, which he doesn't usually like to do. He picked up some good pieces. Like I like Andre Yakomowski. I think he's a solid player who can expand his game, and we've seen glimpses of that so far. We've seen Trevor Baskin bring the energy coming from the D2 level and being a Colorado kid. He's fun. Elijah Malone, an NAIA Player of the Year winner. That's a super fun story. But still that. Besides Yakomowski, those guys don't have D1 experience. And so with this team, I've seen, a lot of ups and downs, and it's been very interesting. Everyone on this team can shoot. Everyone on this team is pretty athletic. This team is pretty tall. But at the same time, they're averaging the 14th most turnovers per game in the nation with 17 per game. That's kind of just stemmed from a miscommunication things and obvious, showing that they haven't played much basketball together as a unit. And then from there, it's kind of just, there's young guys, Bangat Dak, Asanja Zope. Sometimes they look like they're getting sped up when the ball is getting turned over. Same thing with the graduate transfers from the non-Division I level. And even Julian Hammond and Javon Ruffin, who have played Division I basketball in the Colorado system, they didn't necessarily get out to the greatest start, especially taking care of the ball, just because they're trying to figure out this offense that, like I said, hasn't played together. And so that's left a lot of unanswered questions on the board before this Maui Invitational. And I think it'll be very interesting to see how this team looks at the end of December versus right now, because just at this moment, there's just a ton of unanswered questions led by the turnovers and the inexperience.
Yeah, they really haven't had a chance to build much chemistry together. You mentioned that pretty much none of them have played together. If they have played together, it's been in practice with a few of the guys like Javon Ruffin and Julian Hammond and RJ Smith. But none of those guys have really played big minutes at this level, so they really don't have much chemistry. But who are some guys so far that have kind of impressed you, whether it's been their leadership ability, some of those transfers, or just guys that you think can play a pretty big role on this team?
The 3 transfers, they may be the 3 best players on this team. Which makes sense with some of them being the oldest, although it is, somewhat surprising because of the inexperience, as we talked about at the D1 level. But like Andre Yakomowski, coming from Washington State, we've always known him as a 3-and-D guy. But before kind of heading into the season, we knew that, Tad Boyle talked about how he wanted Yakomowski to take on a bigger role as a driver, also scoring from the mid-range. Tad Boyle also talked about his playmaking, his defense. And so far, I think Yakomowski is the best player on both sides of the ball. As a on-ball defender, And I think he's the Buffs' best scorer. And he didn't start this season like too great shooting the ball. He was only 5-18 through the first 2 games. But over the last 2 contests, he had 20 and 17. So he's gone into the groove of things. Elijah Malone, he's actually surprised me. I didn't think he would adjust the game to the D1 game this quickly. Granted, they're playing, the Buffs have played 2 Big Sky teams, a Big West team, and Ivy League team, not the tallest teams in the world. So Elijah Malone has had his way, but he's a little bit more athletic than I expected, a little bit more coordinated than I expected. And, I think if his mental is right, and as long as Tad Boyle can manage, his, as long as he can manage Malone's size, just because that leads to stamina issues, I think Malone will be a good guy. And then Trevor Baskin has just been fantastic with his energy, driving to the hoop. He draws a million fouls. It's insane. He drew 8 fouls against Northern Colorado, if I'm not mistaken. But his one flaw at the moment is just turn the ball over, like a lot of these guys. And I think for him, it's just coming from D2, he was able to do a lot of things. His usage was super high. And I think some of those passes and drives that he was making at D2 just aren't there at the D1 level. And, last game he had 0 turnovers. So all these things, they slowly improved over the last few games. But those 3 guys have stood out to me. And then, from the returners, I'm high on Javon Ruffin. Assange is he's a really interesting guy. I like the way he plays the game. He's very unselfish. And then, there's, always something fun with Bangot Dak and, his height and athleticism and some other stuff. But yeah, the transfers impressed me the most.
It's going to be interesting because just listening to you kind of talk about this team and some of the conversations that Chase and I have had, like the turnovers are a problem, right? They're a raw team. Like, I think it's going to be curious to see what their ceiling is moving forward throughout the course of the season. I mean, here we are recording this at the end of November, right? There's still plenty of games to be played, but they are 4-0. Did have a little bit of a sweaty win there against Northern Colorado, but now getting ready to head to Maui. They're going to have an interesting test here going up against some high-level competition, beginning with Michigan State. And I know that, Michigan State isn't what it always has been under Tom Izzo, but it's still a step up in competition, I would say, compared to the first 4 teams that Colorado has had to face this season. Talk to me a little bit about this matchup between CU and Michigan State, but also talk to me a little bit about the Maui Invitational as a whole.
I think Michigan State is a decent pull for the Buffs because this Michigan State team has not shot the ball well from 3 this year, and it doesn't seem like they want to take too many threes. They really pound the ball inside, and while they move the ball well, and I think that will be an issue for the Buffs on the defensive side of things because the Buffs, due to their lack of playing together, they've had some communication issues, but they've been able to really kind of hold down the inside for the most part. As I mentioned, they've been taller than a lot of the teams that they've played so far this season, but even then, they've still locked down the inside pretty well and forced teams to kind of get their living from the 3-point line. And so I think on the defensive side of the ball, the Buffs, they'll do okay. If it hasn't been evident already, I'm very worried about the offensive side of things. I think Andrei Yakimovsky will have to shoot the ball really well from the 3-point line along with the rest of the team. And the Buffs will really have to move the ball well. Because, as we saw in the Northern Colorado win, they only had 9 assists and along with the million turnovers, and that offense was really stagnant. So, I'm not really too worried about the defense against Michigan State, but that offense, I don't think there will be a game this year where I'm not worried about it. But against this Michigan State team that, is under Tom Izzo, who's a well-respected coach and, has built this program, built the Michigan State program for a while now, I think, it will still be a very tough game for the Buffs, and it will give us a better glimpse of what this team may look like when it comes to Big 12 play. But as far as the Maui Invitational, I think it'll obviously be very interesting if they win because they'll more than likely play UConn, which I don't even think I need to say anything much about that. But if they presumably lose, then they play Memphis, and Memphis had a close game with San Francisco last night. That was kind of interesting. And they have a decent big man who feasts in there. He had a double-double, so it would be fun to see if the Buffs do lose and Memphis loses as well. I think it'll be a fun big man matchup between him and Malone in that second round matchup. But not too much more for the Maui Invitational besides the fact that the Buffs could play Iowa State, which would be somewhat kind of interesting for Big 12 play. But still with this tournament always coming early in the season, it's kind of hard to tell what teams are are legit what teams are, still working through some of the ruts and where everyone kind of settles.
Yeah, Iowa State, I believe, is going to be the Big 12 opener. It's at least the Big 12 home opener in late December for this team. So it'd be cool to kind of see them early. And I guess we're going to get a lot of information on them at the Maui Invitational. Oliver, talk to me a little bit about this 3-point shooting, because the one thing that can keep you in games, especially against some top competition, is being able to shoot the 3-point ball. We know Yakimaski can shoot it. He's only at 36% right now. I think you're hoping him to get a little bit closer to 40 if he's going to be your primary shooter. But who I'm curious about is RJ Smith, who's actually shot the ball very, very well. He dealt with an injury last year, but flashed a little bit his freshman year. What have you kind of seen from him? And do you think he can play a bigger role on this team?
I mean, I think he'll definitely be able to play a bigger role. I don't think necessarily handling the ball as much. I think that will be the ball will be in the hands of Julian Hammond and Ruffin, at least as far as facilitating this offense. But RJ, I mean, he has a fantastic shot. It looks good. In the few games they played last year, I think he only played 7. He was able to knock down a few threes, and as you mentioned, he's been able to knock down a decent amount this year. But one thing that impressed me with him is beyond his 3-point shooting is his athleticism. I think he's the most athletic guard of the guys who are getting minutes at the moment. And so I think while I think Javon Ruffin is the best guard defender at the moment, I think RJ has a chance to surpass him due to his athleticism. And I think that RJ, could really become a solid 3-and-D guy. I don't think he'll find any starts this year, but off the bench, I think in some lineups, this will be a fun part with this team is the lineups, because this team does play 10 to 11 guys in the rotation. At least that's what we've seen so far. But I think there could be some games where RJ will be really solid, really crucial. And, there may even be some games where, we see Hammond, Ruffin, and Smith out there. And it's a very small ball lineup. But 3-and-D is what I'm seeing for RJ this year.
So kind of going back to the point that I made just a moment earlier as well, like it seems like it's a team that's still kind of searching for its identity. And you mentioned, we all know that Tad Boyle does not like to have to hit that transfer portal unless he has to. We know that Aniello is continuing to influence the college sports landscape as a whole. But tell me something. What do you think is the roadmap for this program? Maybe not just this season, but where do you see the trajectory of this program going under Tad Boyle and with some of these guys that they brought in?
I think that with this class specifically, Sebastian Rancic, he's very impressive to me. Even just the funny thing with him, and the same thing with Felix Casares is that when you saw him the first day I walked into practice, you look at them and you're like, hold up, they're not built like freshmen. These guys are filled out, they're strong, and it's evident in their play. And there's still things that they have to catch up to speed. They have some turnover issues. Their defense isn't always perfect. Both those guys are soft-spoken guys, so they need to learn to talk more and things like that. But I'm very impressed by those two. Andrew Crawford is expected to take a redshirt year this year, and I think he could be a very big piece for this program in the future. And then you look at this 2025 recruiting class. 5 solid pieces, very guard heavy, but with the turnover issues, I mean, what could you ask for? And they also got a big man. And so I'm very excited about this 2025 recruiting class and what it looks like, specifically Josiah Sanders. But that's because I've known him for a while now. I've known him since my childhood. But I'm excited about the recruiting class, and Bangai Dak and Sanjay Zope, like I mentioned them earlier. And Tad, whenever he talks about him, he talks about him. He says, I treat them as if they're freshmen. So I think it would be fun to see how this year contributes to their development. I believe Javon Ruffin has another year after this because he redshirted his freshman year. And so I know I've brought up a lot of names, and I haven't said anything too specific about where this program could end up. I'm still interested to see if any of the Coach Prime motion will head over into the other sports. But I think this year will be very big for these younger guys to learn the ropes a little bit. And I think maybe not next year, but in 2 years when you have Bangai Dak and Sanjay Zope as seniors, and you have Rancic as a junior and Casares and Crawford as juniors, you'll have a really solid team if Tad is able to keep these guys around. And with a lot of these guys committing here on the fact of loyalty, I think that's a big thing. And you also look at some of the coaching staff additions like Danny Manning. That's very huge. due to name notoriety, but also what he brings to the program. So I'm not sure if there's any, specific guys that we'll be looking for, but I think at the moment, even though Tad isn't too ready to adapt to the transfer portal game, I think he's still in a solid place. And I don't know. I know that as I mentioned earlier, I'm still pretty new to CU's landscape, but I don't know. They seem to have always made a way to find a way to make things happen, to be somewhat competitive. And I think Tad will be able to continue to do so.
I think what we have to do, especially with this team and even probably the next couple of years, is we have to preach some patience. And most CU fans, especially the ones that don't pay too much attention to basketball and just want to mope and whine about what this basketball team is this season, they need to learn how to be patient. We now play in a league where you're going up against Baylor and Kansas and Houston and Iowa State, and really it's by far the best conference for college basketball. And I think the only way that Colorado can compete in a conference like this is by playing the long game. And I think we see what he's doing with the type of talent that's on this team, especially the young talent, the freshmen and the sophomores. They got a few really good big men right now, and then in a couple of years they're going to have a few really good guards. I think we just have to be a little bit more patient with these guys. And I don't really have a question for you, but I just wanted to make that point that the only way that they're going to win is going to be in two years from now, maybe even 3 years from now, when all this talent starts to develop. I think Tad has a plan. He wants to win, but he knows he can't win every single year with the type of resources that they have at Colorado and the conference that they play in. So let's enjoy this team for what it is. It's a very young team that's going to develop, that's going to have a lot of learning curves and a lot of moving parts. And we're just going to have to see if they can pull off a win. I would love to see a big win at the Keg, whether it's Iowa State, or I know Kansas will play at the Keg, or Houston. I just want to see one court storm this year, and I think that's my only goal. That's my expectation for this team, one court storm. Is that fair, Oliver?
Yeah, I feel like I can agree with that. This team, even though I don't know, a lot of people have made this observation, but they've said that this team is made up a lot of solid role players. And I think if Yakimovsky gets hot one night, this whole lineup can shoot the ball really well. I think they're shooting 40% on the season, but Ben got Dak, he's worked on his shot. Assange, he made his first career three. Elijah Malone, he hit a three in his 27-point game. All these guys can shoot. So I think if the Buffs can get hot on the right night and, things are in their favor, they could get a big upset win. And I think that would be kind of the big thing about this year is just, seeing what surprises they can bring, especially from, guys like Bangad Dak, just because, he's just there. I have no words to describe him, obviously, because, 6'11" with the athleticism he has, he can, always do something fun. And
one alley-oop, roof is coming off the top of the cap.
Exactly. But I think, I don't want to go too long, but one other thing that I just thought of, and with the point that you brought up as far as playing the long game, is that, playing in the Big 12 and the best basketball conference in the nation, is that even if they don't have the most solid year as far as their record, all the games that they're playing conference-wise are going to be quad 1 and quad 2 wins. And so even if the team isn't winning, March Madness will could still be a possibility. It doesn't seem like it'll be this year, as you said, and I don't think it'll necessarily be next year either. But yeah, in 2-3 years, as you mentioned, I think this team, they may not, I don't think they'll necessarily rule a Big 12, but even a middle of the pack finish could bode well for March.
It's a really good point, and I'll let you wrap in a minute here, AP. But in the Big 12, all you got to do is pretty much go 500 in the conference, and you're probably an NCAA tournament team. In the past, in the Pac-12, they had to get to 23, 24, even 25 wins in order to be an NCAA tournament team. So in that case, if you're able to win your games at home, where we know the Keg is one of the toughest places to play in college basketball, then you can find your way into the NCAA tournament. It might not be this year, but it is going to be the more fun part about playing in the Big 12.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And look, at the end of the day, last year was fun, right? Getting to the tournament with all the talent that they had, for sure. But there is something special about kind of building it and seeing it kind of sprout and develop into something. And Oliver, I know you're going to have it all covered for us on social media, online. Before we let you go, where can people follow you? Where are you doing your work? Let the people know so they can make sure to stay up with your content.
So obviously my big one is Twitter, X. You mentioned it. OCU Hayes. CU is from my middle name, by the way. Not CU.
I love that.
That makes sense.
But a little bit of both.
But I've been expanding my social media, so catch me on Instagram, oliverhayes.2. LinkedIn for any employers, obviously.
Perfect.
Trying to think, YouTube, Oliver Hayes, and Blue Sky. I know, that's the Twitter replacement that's supposedly coming in, and that seems to have the most steam of any of the replacements I've seen so far. So I do have a Blue Sky account that I post all my tweets on. So then that's also OCU Hayes. So those are my big ones, but really my big stuff's on Buff Stampede and with Adam. So yeah, if you need me, catch me there.
Do you go to the Buffs games, the football games as media or as a fan?
I do. I've covered all the home football games as a credentialed member, except for the Kansas State game. I was one of the unfortunate people who had a wedding. And the last game, I figured I'd only have 2 more chances to watch Shador and Travis as a fan. So I went as a fan, and that was quite the experience. I figured, of all the games I went to, there were so many highlight plays in that Utah game. It was a blast.
That is such a disrespectful Saturday to have a wedding. There were so many big games that week. There were so many ranked matchups. Gosh, whoever that was just disrespecting a college football fan. I have one more thing for you, Oliver. Adam doesn't have the budget this year to send you to Maui.
What's up with that?
Come on.
Hey, no big deal. No big deal. I like to, I need to see my family here and there too. So I'll see my family. I'll watch the games on TV, and my dad, as I mentioned earlier, who loves sports, he always likes to be around to give me his commentary. So I don't know. It'll be like being in Maui, but from home.
I don't know if anything's like being in Maui.
Yeah, a little bit of difference, but at the end of the day, man, no, you're doing a great job. Tell Shap, tell Adam, tell all those guys we say what's up. And Peckish is a sponsor of the Sko Show right here on Mile High Sports. So part of the reason I ask if you go up to the games as media is I'll make sure to try to get you one of our gift cards up there, get a little grub on us. Maybe, give us a little good review for them as well. We're looking forward to kind of growing that partnership. So Oliver, my friend, thank you so much for a few minutes of your time. We'll do it again soon. And Sko Buffs, my man.
Yes, Go Buffs. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
One other important note before we wrap up this show. Can we talk one more thing? Ken Palm always kind of posts their predictions for the game, and that's where you can get the line of the game a little bit early because I don't think the spread is out. But 3-point win for Michigan State on Ken Palm right now. So we're expecting them to be around a 3-point favorite. That gives us enough of a chance to beat Michigan State.
Wasn't there a college basketball coach that came out and said he hates Ken Palm?
Yeah, well, some people don't like analytics.
I don't like them. I like to use my eyes.
Well, college basketball, you can pretty much
nerds.
These games.
Danny says behind the
nerds.
glass.
College basketball, the nerds are very important because they know what they're doing.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So, no, good stuff, man. I'm excited for basketball season. Obviously, football is still, front and center, but always a good time to keep up with the Buffs. And guys, for any of you that have watched the Sko Show before, I know we have a lot of football fans on the channel. We're going to be doing the show all through March Madness, whether the Buffs make it or not. So we'll be talking football, we'll be talking basketball, men's and ladies, all throughout 2025 as well. So make sure to like the video, subscribe, so that way you guys never, ever miss an episode of the program. But special thanks to Oliver Hayes for joining the show. And for Chase Howell, Danny Bailey behind the glass, I'm AP, Sko Buffs. We'll talk to you guys soon.